What is Russian healthcare? It's a mix of iodine, rudeness, and peeling hospital walls. If there's one thing the backwaters have never had, it's proper medical care. Even when they sent a man into space, even when petrodollars were pouring in like crazy, the state of healthcare remained consistently awful.
Central City Hospital, Surgical Department. Award for those who have just had surgery. Everything is top-notch here. The Children's Infectious Diseases Hospital on Matusov Street operates under the St. Petersburg Pediatric University. This is where Russian pediatricians are trained. This is mold. Black mold thrives in damp and dirty rooms, releasing spores and toxins that are hazardous to health.
Throughout their long and complex history, have never even truly tried to bring their healthcare system to its senses, primarily because they have always consistently sought medical treatment in the West. It never even occurred to them to go to a domestic clinic within Russia, because the Russian healthcare system, in their view, exists solely for the serfs and common people. Terrible healthcare is a consequence of the colossal social inequality in Russian society. First it was the Tsar and the nobility, then the Soviet nomenclatura, and now it's the O0 cooperative. For all of them, it was obvious. First, why bother treating the slaves properly if they don't complain anyway? And second, women will just give birth to more.
Only 6 months later, did the Russian Social Fund provide Sharipov with 2 prostheses. One didn't fit, and the other turned out to be a metal rod with some strange attachments.
Well, I didn't expect, of course, that it would be dismal, let's put it that way.
Instead of building a hospital, it's better to build a palace or buy a football club in England. And the barefoot peasants will make do with whatever. The main thing is that they don't kick the bucket from a common cold or a splinter, and that'll be just fine. And if they don't live to retirement age, that's even better, no need to pay them a pension.
Sometimes people say to me, hey, why are you so nervous? Why are you so angry? How the hell can you not be angry when you see all of this? How can you not be angry when everything is falling apart like this? There are children here. There are elderly individuals present here, and there are also disabled people here. It truly just boggles the mind.
Meanwhile, the so-called elite of the Russian world gets their treatment as far away from the Russian world as possible. Remember that old stinky wig that was attached to an even older propagandist, Kobzon? That scum?
Which is called the SBU. And I have my own translation for SBU, the Union of Banderai Killers.
Kobzon was a staunch supporter of the Soviet Union and Putin. He couldn't stand the decaying West, and his hairpiece would practically lift from all the Russian values.
Kobzon was vetoed. They won't let him into the European house. We couldn't care less about that veto. And in general, we don't care about the sanctions either.
Naturally, with all his dark soul, Kobzon supported the aggression against Ukraine, for which he even became a hero of the DPR. After all, his navel is buried in Donbass. Whatever that means.
He was born in Chasov Yar, my homeland. That's where my navel is buried. Where is my navel buried? My navel is buried here in Donbass, my homeland.
Kobzon consistently violated Ukraine's state border and entertained the terrorists.
I suffered from Banderites in Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, and Donetsk.
But that's not even the worst of it yet. It got to the point where, in a fit of jingoistic patriotism, Yosia called on people not to donate money for the treatment of terminally ill children, but instead to give it to annexed Crimea.
And we see on television, save the child. So what should we do? It's a tragedy. I sympathize with the child's mother. But in order to raise foreign currency and effectively treat the child, perhaps it would be more reasonable, not because we absolutely shouldn't pay attention to this sick child, but perhaps in terms of overall priorities, it would make more sense to raise funds and help Crimea.
At that moment, even Satan choked and asked again, "What the fool?" In short, Kobzon openly and aggressively hated the West and considered it worse than the fascists.
The Americans are still actively and continuously funding them to this very day, even now. This is worse than the fascists.
Naturally, the West reacted instantly. The elderly cannibal was banned from entering, waved goodbye to, and wished a long life. Not without irony, of course.
The most inexplicable target of Europe's sanctions turned out to be the singer Iosif Kobzon, who now won't be able to receive the necessary medical treatment abroad.
And only after that did Kobzon realize he was in trouble. Before that, the propagandist used to treat his ailments in the West, so he was no longer laughing at the sanctions together with the Iskanders. When his illness flared up and his wig started pulling Yosia toward the heavens, the rabid chauvinist howled and began begging to be let into the EU for treatment.
I'm begging you. Even if just for a little while.
He even asked Putin to negotiate with NATO for his treatment. And the cruel, cunning Europe slyly took pity on the old propagandist and agreed to treat him. As a result,
Iosif Kobzon was issued a national visa for Italy, which only allows him to legally stay within the borders of that specific country.
and that's when Kuklachev's jaw dropped. Because before this, Kobzon had fiercely discouraged him from going abroad for treatment and had praised the virtues of domestic medicine to everyone left and right. But at the very first opportunity, he himself went to the West for treatment.
That's a good joke. He says, now I'm going to tell everyone about it.
Can you truly imagine some prominent American senator or a distinguished German parliamentarian ever asking their very own government for official permission to travel to Russia specifically for medical treatment or any related healthcare services? Yet another Kremlin ghoul has demonstrated the greatness of Russian medicine. Putin's personal infantryman, TikTok dictator, and simply the most patriotic authority, Ramzan Kadyrov.
Who are you? I am Russia, hero of Russia, Czech Republic general, a Don, a government official. I am Russia, Don.
He and his entire family, of course, are currently under sanctions for egregious war crimes and actively supporting Putin's bloody regime. Of course, you can't last long relying on Russian medicine. That's why Ramzan forgot his pride and humbly started begging the United States to let his mother get treatment in the West.
Lift the sanctions, Don. Quickly, please, just really don't. And if you don't, the sanctions you imposed against my mother, I won't forgive you for that, Don. I'll do anything, Don.
So what happened? Why not take his mother for treatment in the LNR, where Russia has been building a wonderful future for 10 years now? Kadyrov receives billions every year, supposedly for the development of the Chechen Republic. And in all those years, not a single halfway decent hospital has appeared there. Not even a private one. But there is a golden assault rifle. His friends gave it to him as a gift.
Wow, those must be diamonds, right? Well, that's what they say, I don't know.
And Kadyrov regularly gives SUVs to his fighters. Why invest in healthcare when you can just go get treated in normal countries that aren't run by deranged and cruel tyrants? Or rather, you could. Kadyrov himself has long been teetering on the edge between life and hell. His condition gets worse with each passing month.
Our enemies think this is some kind of medical device. Look, this is an electronic counter. I use it to count prayers, Don. So Don, come on, don't make things up, Don. I am a healthy person, Don.
And the longer he gets treated in Russia, the worse he gets.
We don't really want to live long anymore.
So Ramzan prefers to get treatment not in the Chechen paradise he built, nor in Putin's Moscow, but in the United Arab Emirates. Lately, he's been flying there quite often. And when he doesn't fly there, he brings doctors over from there. Because he fundamentally doesn't trust Russian specialists.
That would be the most proper and can't even say the word gone.
And the cherry on top of this cake of humiliation for Russian medicine is the Kremlin's Humpty Dumpty. Putin has a whole bouquet of ailments, some of which he may have picked up from deer in the taiga.
All these complications are connected with this so-called special military operation.
The dictator is still alive only because he also doesn't trust Russian medicine and gets treated by Western specialists. Of course, as a wanted war criminal, it's hard to travel around European health resorts. That's why doctors are delivered to Putin by mail. The Führer ignores his own healthcare system. He wants to live, the scoundrel. Even the Kremlin clinic, into which millions of people's money have been poured, is useless and dangerous for the cannibal leader.
So it's a huge institution, but it serves not only the president, it also serves the entire top state nomenclatura. By the way, the patriarch gets treated there, but the treatment there is actually poor because the doctors are bad, even though the equipment is very good and everything is set up perfectly. The rooms are nice, everything looks beautiful, everything is modern, everything is Western style. The most modern equipment, the best Western medicines, but the worst doctors.
Can you imagine the level of the rest of the medical institutions in Russia? Often people come to the hospital not to get treated, but to die. Usually, it's slow and painful, even while waiting in line.
Elena recalls, doctors showed hostile attitude patient. They were reluctant to admit Oleg to the hospital, too severe patient.
The medical staff who work at this hospital themselves say if someone ends up in intensive care in our Belogorsk hospital in serious condition, it's basically the same as ending up in the morgue.
Ukrainian intelligence has stated that even now, Putin continues to use the services of Western doctors. If it weren't for them, cancer would have devoured this arthropod long ago.
Well, whether you like it or not, endure it, my beauty.
Putin distrusts Russian healthcare so much, which has flourished magnificently for 20 years under him, in quotes that he's willing to see shamans and outright charlatans, just to avoid domestic doctors. There are already legends about the half-meter-tall patient's fascination with magical procedures.
But he's also accompanied by all sorts of people involved in rejuvenation. Well, I don't know. It practically borders on charlatanism, because we know that he went with Shoigu to shamans in Siberia, and they held some absolutely terrifying closed ceremonies there.
Baths made from deer antlers, showers of badger sweat, inhaling skunk fumes, anything but treatment in a Russian hospital. Luckily, the chief shaman of all the swamps, Shoigu, is always close at hand. What he and Putin do out there in the taiga, what kinds of mushrooms and herbs he feeds Himanly Beelzebub knows.
Let's show you.
Perhaps after consuming some truly exotic and potent berries, Putin begins spouting his delirious nonsense.
So, how did Ukraine come about? Who created it? Vladimir Ilyich Lenin?
The Putin regime doesn't want to, and in fact he's afraid of Russian medicine. After all, they know exactly what state it's in and what it's capable of. Or rather, what it's not capable of. And the invasion of Ukraine finally exposed this open secret. In the Russian army at war, the entire catastrophe of Russian medicine has come to the surface.
These are the remnants of 3 companies. Our command has taken us to the base and is now sending us out on combat missions in small groups. Even though everyone here truly needs surgery and inpatient medical treatment, field medics just shrug when approached and simply refers to the command.
It turned out that in the army, the only place where billions were actually invested there weren't even proper first aid kits.
Here in the contents we find, you probably can't even tell what this is, because apparently it's very, very old. It's quite ancient, actually. This is most likely an individual medical bandage pack. As you can see, there's even some mold from the dampness. This is the first aid kit of a Russian occupier. Here's a tourniquet like this.
I honestly do not understand how they send them out with a first aid kit that is like this.
The conditions in Russian hospitals are many times worse than in Ukrainian captivity. The mortality rate among Russian wounded is enormous, so they're often just finished off instead of being evacuated. At best, they give them an old Soviet tourniquet and leave them under the scorching sun. Due to international sanctions, there is now a significant shortage and a complete lack of quality Western medicines in Russia, which used to help the Rapsianes at least somewhat maintain their vital bodily functions and overall well-being. Now, the citizens of the fascist state will fully experience the entire burden, the spiritual bonds, and the grandeur of their pseudo-empire.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.